Hi everyone, my name is Peter, and if you don't know me, I have been a crocheter and pattern designer for over 10 years. I do this part-time aside my full-time job, and in this video what I want to talk about is how do you start a crochet business. I truly believe that anyone can just start a crochet business with less than $100 US. Most of the money will gonna go to cover the material costs. For someone who haven't crocheted before but wanted to learn to crochet in order to start a handmade business, please know that it's going to take time, right? You cannot expect to learn how to crochet in one day and gonna make the sale same day or the next day. Even with those who already crochet as a hobby, you still cannot expect to, make a lot of money overnight or within a month or two. Like, it's going to take time, so please know that, like, making money from crocheting it's not an easy journey, but it's not impossible either. So I just want to share, what my thought and my experience are, so that anyone who is new and want to start making income with crochet can. First, I'm going to talk a little bit about why you only need 100 and not more. My belief is that, it's better to just start off with a little amount of money and not a lot, because if you put too much money into like buying a lot of materials and you ended up not selling or making money back, like, if that happened to me, I would feel really, really sad, right? Like, I invested so much, but I'm not making any return. I don't think crocheting is for everyone. So I didn't want people to like invested too much, lost a lot of money, and like not getting anything, back out of it. But if crocheting is, for you, or if you don't even know if you like it or not, do not put too much into it, right? You can just simply start with one skein of yarn, like one ball of yarn and a crochet hook to see if this is something for you. Another thing I want to talk about is, what kind of material should you buy? Because you might already know if you have been to a local craft store like Joanne or Michael. For people who, live for people who live in the US like me, you can see that there are plenty of different kind of yarn, like different brands of yarn. Which one should I get, because those also comes with different price point. For me personally, if you have not crocheted before, you probably would want to go with a medium weight yarn. It's also called like worsted weight yarn and size 4 yarn. Usually those kind of yarn, such as, this is not sponsored by the way, but I'm just gonna name a few brands for the size 4 yarn that I'm currently using, like the Caron 1 pound yarn, or the Red Heart acrylic yarn. Those are just a few brands. I personally like the medium weight yarn the most, because first off, is like the easiest yarn to crochet as a beginner. I also started with that yarn specifically, and secondly, the price point for those yarn it's a lot cheaper than like other kind of fancy plushy yarn, you know what I mean? And you could get one of those skein probably like anywhere from like $3 to $5 per color. And thirdly, they actually have a lot of color options. I have a lot of those yarn, and what I do is sometimes you can like kind of mix and match the color from different brand, as long as they have the same yarn weight, right? You can have like a big collection of the color and not having to worry about spending too much money. Okay, and for those who, you know, maybe have already crocheted before, you probably would already know what kind of yarn type or brand you might prefer, and that's okay. And for those of you who like really want to get into like, you know, using the blanket yarn or like the plushie yarn or like those viral yarn, I mean, I totally understand, because a lot of the customer also like to buy those kind of yarn, right? But if you're going to just start with $100, you'll have to watch out for like how much of those yarn you can buy, because I'm currently using the Bernard blanket yarn and those giant ball that you might have seen in my previous video. Those cost anywhere from like $8 at the cheapest up to like $12 or $13 per one of those balls. So if you start off with, you know, something as expensive as that, you're not gonna be able to buy as many color of the yarn to start off with. However, if you're confident that you can, you know, crochet with the plush yarn, which, you know, could be more difficult to crochet with than the medium weight yarn if you're new to crochet, since like the plush yarn, if you go look at my video, it's gonna be slightly harder to see like the stitches, since, you know, the colors seem to be kind of blending all along. But you can like take a look at my videos, like those, you know, penguins or duck tutorial that I made. I was using plush yarn for that. If you think you can do it, I mean, I would just say go for it, right? Just do what your heart desired, but, you know, within reasonable limits, I would say. Now that we have discussed different types of yarn materials and so on, I also want to mention this last type of yarn. It's actually not yarn, it's embroidery thread. You might have seen in my previous video or even on my website, I usually made a lot of these keychains using embroidery thread, because the thread is a lot smaller, and I usually like making small things because I think it's cute. And for people who want to get into embroidery thread, you know what, like the price point is actually pretty good. However, to crochet something very small, it might take a little bit of practice, so just so you know. However, if you want to like try it out, it doesn't hurt to just, you know, maybe get like a few skein of those thread. You could get probably at a local store for like, you know, less than $1 per skein, just to try it out, and maybe like just spend like $5 or so to get a crochet hook. So it's not a lot of investment to just try things out. So I highly recommend. And embroidery thread actually comes with a lot of yarn. I mean, not yarn, a lot of color selection. So it's very nice, right? Because you have a bunch of color. The price is not that bad. It's just a matter of, can you feel comfortable crocheting, you know, a lot with the small thread. Okay, so now that we have covered several kinds of yarn, you know, just go with what you decide the most and see what's reasonable. And if you're going to go with the medium weight yarn, I would say you could spend maybe up to like $50 worth of yarn, and, you know, leave the rest of the money to also, you know, invest in stuffing, get the crochet hook, the needles, you know, stitch marker, and just basic things that you might need. So if you pick the medium weight yarn, you probably could get, you know, around like 10 or so color, maybe a little bit more depending when you buy it. I highly encourage buying on sales. And if you decide to go with embroidery thread, I got a lot of my embroidery thread through Amazon, and this is not sponsored by any means, but usually you would be able to find sellers who are selling the embroidery thread in bulk. You might be able to find like they were selling maybe like one order of like 50 colors or like 100 colors. So I just buy like many packs of that so that I have, you know, backups for certain colors. Or you could also go to your local store to just get, you know, one color at a time, like the one that you really need. However, the price point for those will be higher. Like I said, I think it might be around like 70 cents per piece if you buy in store, but if you buy online in bulk, it might be around like 20 cents per piece, or might be less than that. I need to do my calculation and check the price. I haven't bought one in a while since I still have a lot of I still have a lot in storage currently. Okay, and lastly, for those who want to start out with the plush yarn, this is why we need to be very careful about how we spend the money. I think if we're only going to spend $50 on the yarn itself, we're gonna need to do some math here. Like, let's say that average, you know, ball of yarn is, what, $10? Since the price that I found is anywhere from 8 to like 13, but you know, just try your best to buy it when it's on sales. It might even be a little bit lower, but like let's say it's $10. You might want to just, you know, start it off with just getting 5 different color. And this is why you need to be a little bit strategic, because you know what kind of color would be best, right, for like different kind of things that you can crochet. For me personally, if I only have to choose 5 color, what I would pick first is white, right? You can go without white color. Like, what can you make with white color? If you see in my creation, since I do a lot of animals, I think white color, you know, is part of like duck. You could have a white duck, or like the white could be used in making like panda, for example. I mean, of course you're gonna need all the color, but I'm just giving you an example of what you can do with each color. I also use white to make one of the cocktail patterns that I saw online. And okay, so move on to the next color. I think yellow would be very good because a lot of people like to crochet bee with the plush yarn. So, you know, bee at least have yellow and maybe black color. Black color is also good because now if you were to get white, yellow and black, you could combine yellow and black to be a bee. And then you could combine white and black to be like a panda, for example, right? Now you're like expanding like the, I guess, the choice of character you could make with just these, you know, 3 colors, which is awesome, honestly. Another animals you probably could also make is a duck. If you go to my website, you can see like a white duck that I make, and basically like the beak color of the duck or like the feet of the duck, I use yellow color for that. So that's perfect, right? With just these 3 colors, you can at least make 3 animals already: the duck, the panda, and the bees. And if I need to pick the last 2 color, I think I couldn't leave without pink, because I use pink a lot. Although, like for example, in all of the plushie, I like to add kind of like blushes on the cheeks, so those are pink. So I usually like buy a lot of pink just for that. However, if you're only gonna use pink color just for making like small parts, you can also get, you know, the medium weight yarn to, you know, do that work for you, so you can get something cheaper, you know, that would do the same job. However, if you're going to crochet with the pink yarn, you know, it's worth it to just go ahead and just get it. For anything in pink, I also did a panda, but instead of the black color, I substitute that with pink, and it's like super duper cute. I think white and pink is a good combination. Another thing you could possibly make is a strawberry flavored cow. I made that before for one of the Patreon patterns, but with a different yarn weight, right? But you could also do the same thing with blanket yarn, you know, who to say you cannot. So like those are some of the ideas I have. So now I want to talk a little bit about like the other supplies that is necessary for you to, you know, make the plushie, right? The next thing is crochet hook. Personally, I'm gonna tell you my favorite brand, okay? And this is not sponsored. I've been crocheting for more than 10 years and these are my favorite, okay? So first off, I like Tulip brand from Japan. And you might see me in some of the tutorial that for the like 1.5 mm hook that I use with the embroidery thread, I like the Tulip brand the most. And I highly recommend whenever you get the hook, get the one that comes with a handle that's going to save your hand for a long term. I've been crocheting for a long time and I was being very stubborn about, you know, just sticking with a metal hook. I was trying to resist not, you know, making that transition to using a rubber handle hook. But once I did make that switch, it makes my hand a lot better, because if you crochet way too much, your hand is gonna start hurting. Those rubber hook is, you know, good for your hand. Okay, so next thing, you're going to need some stuffing. I use polyfill stuffing. However, I truly believe that you can use any kind of stuffing, right? It just kind of depends on what you prefer. Some stuffing is, I guess, harder than another to kind of push it in to the crochet doll or plushie, but it's not that big of a deal. So whichever stuffing you can find, I probably would just get the cheapest one. That would be the one I recommend just for you to start it off with. But you know, as the time goes, you probably would figure out which one you prefer. Yeah, this goes the same for the stitch marker as well. It comes with many kinds. If you don't want to spend money with the stitch marker, you don't have to. You actually can just cut off a piece of yarn and use that to mark like the end of the round or the end of the row, you know, whichever you're working on. Some people don't like to use stitch marker because you know, they might accidentally pull on it while they crochet. That actually hasn't happened to me yet, but I heard from other people that has happened to them, and it's kind of annoying if, you know, it suddenly get pulled out, so like you get lost like where you are on your crochet, right? I actually have another tutorial that helps you, you know, find your way back to where you left off if your stitch marker get lost. So you can check that if, you know, that's like an, I guess, reoccurring problem to you. However, okay, so besides from the yarn stitch marker, there's also another stitch marker that I like to use in my tutorial. It's like a spiral stitch marker. I think those one are good too. I don't have anything bad to complain about. I mean, I don't have anything bad in general to complain about stitch marker. I think they're all fine. It just kind of depends on what you prefer. Some people might even use just a safety pin, you know, to mark the stitch marker. And if that's work for you, then yeah, that's great. Okay, and then probably the last thing that I can think of here that you need to get is a needle. And how big is the needle is going to depend on what kind of yarn you're using. And obviously if you crochet with the blanket or plushie yarn, you're going to need like a very big needle. Usually I prefer a longer needle. It's gonna be easier to like sew parts together, or you know, make embroidery details on the plushie itself. So the longer the needle, the better. Another thing you need to also consider is how big is the eye hole. Because if the eye hole is too small for the yarn weight that you're using, you might have a hard time inserting the yarn into the needle. So like those would be the two things I would look for in a needle. And I guess one more thing is that I usually prefer to use a metal needle instead of like a plastic one, because those plastic ones can break, right? You just want to buy something that lasts you a long time, right, to make your money worth. Okay, so you know, not counting the yarn, like the rest of the supply, I'm guessing you might be spending about $30 to get the rest of the supply. It might be a bit lower depending on, you know, what kind of hook you're using and all that. Okay, so now like we probably left with around $20 or so, and I think one of the thing I would invest in if I started from scratch is getting myself a custom business card. You can get a lot of those for like cheap price, with, you know, like a low minimum order quantity. I usually make my business card through Canva. And okay, so here's the technique that I use. I usually order just like a normal card with, you know, like a bigger size, maybe, I don't know the number on top of my head, but maybe like, let's say it's like 4" by 4". You can actually cut that into like 4 different pieces, and it would be like 2 by 2, like a business card, right? So like, you know, those kind of techniques, you might order something that's a little bit bigger, but you kind of manually cut it yourself to get a cheaper price. That could work for you as well. So I think on the business card, it would be nice if you come up with some kind of a logo so that people can start recognizing you by. I changes my logo all the time, so I might not be the best to advise on this, but currently I just have a logo of my face and then the logo of, you know, my product, right? I just picked 2, which are the 2 characters of the dog that I came up with. Okay, so just something that represents your work, I would say. And on the business card, make sure to have your website information and social media accounts, right? Because you want to make sure that people can find you. If you're going to include a QR code, I think that's great, right? Because a lot of people use that these days. They know how to scan, things like that. However, I would highly recommend that you also include like an actual link. Maybe you could shorten it. You know, don't need to include like https:// You don't need to include that, but at least say like, you know, something.com if that's your website. Because some people, they might not know how to use the QR code, and you want to, you know, accommodate that. Okay, so we got all the materials, a business card. Last thing I would probably spend money on is, you know, some kind of a packaging. It doesn't need to be custom, but like it's something that you can ship your product in, right? If you have any like boxes that you got from buying stuff online, you could also reuse that, right? Like the shipping packaging, initially it doesn't have to be anything fancy because you're just starting it off with. But I just wanna, I guess, set aside this money for at least you know, have some packaging supply to ship with. You could also get like a mailer or maybe buy a couple boxes with that money to start off. You don't really need to buy a lot. You just, you know, get a few so that if someone places an order, you can ship to them. Okay, so we have talked about where you would be spending your money. Now I'm going to talk about, you know, my process if I were to start a new business today, what I would do in order to start generating sales. Okay. So if you want to sell online, initially I would not recommend getting your own website because that is a lot of money that you need to kind of pay upfront and also, you know, keep paying monthly or yearly and so on. That's a lot of cost when you haven't made any money yet. So I don't think that would make sense for anyone who is just starting. Just to give you an idea, my website currently I have to pay about $30 per month just to keep that website running, as well as like some additional subscription because the website provider Shopify doesn't comes with everything. So if I want some additional features, I need to like subscribe to additional services per month. So that cost me about like $10 more, so like around $40 per month just to keep that website up and running. Another thing that I also had to pay for is the domain name, and domain name is basically that website name. Like right now you can just type on your browser pitachang.com, right? Like that pitachang.com is the domain name that I had to pay in order to use that. And that, well, the domain doesn't cost a lot for me, at least when I bought it, but you know, price can vary depending on if it's, you know, very desirable name or not. I pay around, I think $30 per year. That price might increase or it might not, I'm not sure. So I just want to give you an idea of, you know, the different expenses that goes into owning a website. So my recommendation would be start selling on Etsy. I know that a lot of people might not want to start there because they're scared that it's too saturated or your product might not get seen and things like that. But I still think that Etsy is still a good place to start because the amount of money you needed to start is not a lot. When you start to list a product on Etsy, I believe each of the listing costs like a couple of cents. It used to cost like, you know, 20 cents per each listing. I'm not sure if they increased it yet or not. It might have been like 35 right now. Don't quote me on it, but around like 20 to 30 cents per each listing. When you start selling initially, you might not have like, you know, many different plushies or designs that you're trying to list. Like let's say you have 10 different plushies you are listing, right? Then you might be paying around like $2 or $3 to just have those listed initially. What happened then is that once you make a sale, Etsy will take a cut of like the amount of sale you made. Like let's say you list a plushie for $10, right? You already paid for the listing fee. You will have to pay for the transaction fee, which is around, I think 6% the last time I checked. And you will also have to pay for the payment processing fee. This means that if someone like pay with the credit card or, you know, whichever services, they always take a cut, right? So for something priced, well, I would say for something priced under $10, you might be losing around like 10 to 13% of, you know, however much you sold. So for $10, you might be losing about like $1 or $2, and then you get to keep around like $8 in your pocket. That's just a rough estimate, okay? Maybe in the future video I might do like a more detailed how do you calculate your earnings. But usually I prefer to list something maybe at around like $15 to $20. But if you're initially just starting and want to start small, that's okay too. Even if the profit is not a lot initially, that's not very important yet. And it's because when you first started off, you want people to get to know you. So however you can, get product to be seen, or get people to just buy it and leave you good review, that's probably the most important at the start. In the beginning, initially, I wouldn't, bank on making a lot of profit. Like, I feel like most of the time it's not gonna happen, but it's important if you can get someone to purchase. So when I started in the beginning, I usually just price everything kind of low, probably too low or underpriced. But I didn't care at the time, because if they just buy the product, I, give good service, they leave a review, that's gonna make me more like trustworthy or credible to like the next buyer, and that's how you build your audience. For people who worry about, like cutting yourself too much or like, underpriced too much, I would say that just try to make sure that you earn a little bit back on top of the materials that you might have spent on at the start. Once you have a lot more customer, your product, become in high demand, you would be able to increase the price by a lot at that time. And it's not wrong to, make the price go up, right? That's just kind of the basic economics, right? If your product in demand, you can raise up the price to maximize your profit. So that's something that you can do later. Right now, we're just trying to get started, make sure we, get some money back so that we can keep investing into the small business that we're trying to start. Yeah, one of the important thing I want to mention is that when you first start like your crochet business, I highly recommend to not mix your crochet earnings with your full-time job earning or whatever job you have currently. It's not good to mix personal and business income, because it can get very confused as to how much you are earning. And if you're not like making any money, but you're putting a lot of your personal money into the business, well, that's business is not a good business, right? So you want to keep things separate so that everything is accounted for. Like the best way to do things is that we spend that $100, we start making sales, and you can use that money you got from your sales to put back into the crochet business to grow it bigger. That's basically what I did when I started. I probably spent a bit more than $100 at the time when I started, because I keep wanting to, add different sort of yarn and things like that. But once I put down that certain amount of money, if you want to put a little bit more than 100, that's totally fine if you're able to do so. But once you decided on that amount initially, like don't put more of your personal, okay? Just start, growing slowly from the initial amount that you have invested, and then we can keep putting more money back into the business to make sure that it's sustainable. Okay, so now we have talked about what materials, where would you start selling online. I just want to talk a little bit about selling in person. If you just first started off, I actually don't recommend selling in person, because selling in person requires a lot of investment. I personally spend like several $100 actually, might be closer to $1,000 on just investing in like display setup alone. I probably spend too much on the display, to be honest with you. So even if you just go with the minimum amount of display, such as like buying tables, chairs, like the different display supply you can put on your table and things like that, it might still get to be like couple $100, which is, you know, a lot more than what we want to spend at this moment. And to sell at a small market, it still costs a lot of money, right? To just rent the space when you don't know how much you're going to make back. So I highly recommend to not sell in person unless you're able to do it at the price you can afford. I'm not gonna tell you not to go do. I believe everyone can make the decision of their own, but for me, I don't see that as a profitable thing to just do right in the beginning when you don't have enough funding. In the past, I tried to sell at a local market, and in California, Southern California, renting a space is very expensive. I paid probably anywhere from around like $80 to $100 for a table for just couple of hours, like 4 to 5 hours, and probably make the sales at about like the same amount. Sometimes it just broke even, right? It's not even making a profit. I felt like a lot of time I just wasted my time being there. But again, everything is a learning experience. You know, if you don't try, you don't know. So I'm willing to pay for the experience that I'm getting. Okay, and since you're going to be selling online solely, we need to make sure you get seen online, you know, utilizing the social media accounts that you might have, or if you need to create a new one, go ahead, right? So I want to tell you a little bit of my journey to go from, you know, like 2,000 followers to 50 followers that I have right now on Instagram. Back in 2020, that's when I had around, you know, 2,000 followers. And at that time, I remember that Animal Crossing became so popular. I started making the Animal Crossing keychain character, and since, you know, I kind of hop on the trend with whatever character is popular at that time and keep posting a lot of photos, some of those picture posts went viral. I remember just a couple of days in, my follower number just went up like crazy. It went from like 2,000 to what, like 10 or 20,000 really quick. So initially, if you need like a way to grow your account, you might want to hop on trends or hop on you know, like popular things that people making at the time. Oh, that worked for me, so that might work for you as well. You could give that a try. After I reached at around 20k followers, I noticed that, you know, I'm having a hard time to keep my account growing, and the reason is because at that time I started feeling tired of making Animal Crossing character. I felt like I want to just crochet what I want to make, right? I don't want other people to decide for me what I should make. I just want to make my own original character and so on. So that actually took a pivot, and it requires a lot more effort to, you know, make my character lovable by other people, because, you know, if you're making popular character, other people already love those characters and willing to just purchase from you. However, when you make your own original character, they don't know them yet, right? You need to start giving them a story or giving them some characteristic that would attract people. So it took me quite a while to come up with my own original character, my own original design, or even like discover my my work style. So if you wanna go on that path where you start creating your own characters and design, you can. There's nothing wrong with that, but you know, please know that it could take some time to grow an audience. Another thing on Instagram that makes a lot of impact for me is posting reels. In order for me to grow from 20k follower to 50k is pretty much through some of the few viral reels that I have on there. In a lot of time, I like to show people, you know, the process of making some of the plushie. I think those reels are did very well. The other ones that did very good is how I set up my table display at a convention. But since if you're not selling at the market, you wouldn't have that footage. But again, you know, like nothing is impossible, right? If you're not selling at the market, you could still do a setup like on your desk at home, you know, just make it look nice and things like that. Just need to be creative of what kind of reels you can make and post. Some people might be afraid that, oh, you know, I don't know what content I should make. I mean, that's how I felt at the time. I don't know what I'm gonna post, right? But you could also just hop on trends. There's a lot of people who make crochet and use certain audios, you know, so they just follow a trend of what people are making. You could make it too if you don't know what to make. So that's an easy idea. And again, if you're crocheting something, work in progress is a good one to do. Growing a following on social media, I would say it could take some time, but if your work is great and you're lucky to, then you might, you know, grow from a few followers, subscriber to, you know, a bunch of audience like real quick. It really depends, but I feel like the other thing that is good to have is interaction with your audience, because you don't want the follower or subscriber to just be a number, right? You want to start communicating with your audience to kind of get a feel of who they are, what kind of content they want to see from you. And I mean, honestly, interacting with them is fun for me, right? I actually made, I think, a lot of friends from Instagram, and I actually get to know a couple of more people on YouTube as well. So the thing is, on Instagram, I get a lot of comments, so sometimes I cannot remember everyone. However, if some of those people started to comment on my YouTube video, which I don't get that many comments, so I actually would see and be able to notice people a lot more. So that's kind of what I like, you know, to see that some people have very meaningful comment for me to remember by, and next time they comment, I actually recognize them and I like to respond to that. Okay, and then one last thing that I want to go over, I know that this video is very, very long, but I hope this been all helpful to you, is that one of the techniques to get seen and get your post shared by a big account is to, for example, if you made the crochet plush design, right? Let's say someone give out a free pattern, you make a character from that pattern and you tag them in a post. Most likely they will share it because they want to show that, you know, how the finished product will look like if other people make from it, right? And sometimes they also like the way you make that character and they just want to share it, right? Because it's their design. But you know, like they're really happy that you're making it. So that's one of the technique and tips. I personally usually try to share off the creation made with my patterns if you tag me on an Instagram post. That could be certain cases where you tag me on the post, but since, you know, maybe I haven't checked Instagram too frequently, I might have missed a few. However, if you want me to share your post on my Instagram story, I would be more than happy to. If you crochet, you know, one of my character, I would be really happy to share. You could also tag me in your post through, I don't know, if you can send it to my DM, I would see it and I would definitely share. But if you only tag me on a post, sometimes it doesn't go through the DM and the notification get lost very easily. So if I don't see and don't share that, I'm really sorry, but you could try DM me if you know, made a character from me before. I would be more than happy to share. And you could also make characters from, you know, other big accounts, and I'm pretty sure they would be more than happy to share as well. Okay, so this has been a very long and detailed video. I really hope that you have a successful start with your new business. And if you have any comments, questions, feel free to comment in this video. I will do my best to reply. A lot of things just, I feel like, still depends on luck, right? But also, you know, it's kind of a combination of hard work, luck, and talent. If you don't have one of those, it's kind of hard to be successful, but, you know, keep trying at it. I truly believe that if you put your heart on the right place, you can get far. So if you like this video, please let me know, or if there's any other kinds of video, yeah, please let me know as well. And yeah, have a great day and great start with your business. Bye bye.